Alright, and now we're ready to get started in Photoshop. So first things first, let's go to File, New. Now here we have some presets. Now these are things that I've opened up recently, but we have saved. We've got for photo, print, art, web, mobile, and film, different presets depending on what you need. So you can just click on Art and Illustration, but we're going to create our own preset. So what we're going to do is first put in the width and the height. So we're going to start with 1024, and I just press Tab, and then 1024. That should be pixels. Orientation doesn't matter because it's got to be perfectly square. No artboards. Resolution, we're just going to do 72 because you can't see anything bigger than 72, or at least that's what they've determined so far with technology. And RGB, white background. And so what we're going to do is this little icon here, we're going to click to create this preset, and we're going to name this game, do a space, and do 1024. Save preset. Now all the same settings except for the width and height, we're going to do 2048 and 2048. And we're going to save this preset, game, man, you guessed it, 2048. And one more time, we're going to create another preset, 4096 by 4096. Oh man, I'm just so predictable, aren't I? Game 4096. I mean 97. Haha! Just kidding. Just kidding. 96 years old. I sound pretty good for that, huh? Anyway, save preset. Bam! There we go. So now under saved, we have our game textures. Again, now these are going to be kind of our standard layouts for game textures. So we're going to go ahead and start with a 2048 today. So we're just going to do a 2048. So we can double click that or click create. And there we have it. So now we have our workspace area. If we'd like to change this outside, you can right click and you can do default or dark gray or medium gray, something like that you would like. And we have our background here under layers. Now it's locked, keeps you from painting or moving it, which is fine. We're not even going to really use it, so that's okay. Let's start with the move tool, and we want to turn on show transform controls. In other words, this is going to show us, we're going to be able to see when we're scaling or rotating different pictures or objects. So we're going to turn that on. So what we're going to do is you're going to open up the textures that you downloaded for this, and we're using these three here. We're going to start with our sample metal texture here, and we're going to drag this file right in and drop it. Now because we had our show transform controls on, you can see, we can see, you can see, we can see, we all see. Now we'll grab the corner and hold shift so we can stretch this out all the way to the bottom and snap it. And you'll know it's snapped when you see the purple lines. You see? You see? Purple lines. Bam! And we can just press enter or this checkbox right here. Press enter. It's faster. Great! So we have our base layer here. And if we wanted to edit this, currently this is a smart object. And I think we're going to leave it because we're not really going to make too many changes to it. Next up, we're going to bring in our vents, 0, 2, 3, 2, 1. Drop this in. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit enter. And I think it's centered, but if we just move it around, you'll see these purple lines right now means that it is centered horizontally and vertically. So that's good. I like it there. And let's go ahead and also bring our metal roll up in as well. So we'll drag that in. Now for this one, we're going to bring it up to the corner here. and then drag it down and snap it to the bottom,
Holding Shift.
and hit enter. Now that's great and all. We're going to change some things up in this one too specifically. So this is a smart object layer. And so what we're going to do, there are 3 parts of this. We have the thumbnail, we have the text, and we have the layer out here on the side where we can have different icons. On the text, you're going to right click and rasterize this layer. So basically it's just a pixelated wonder layer. That's great. And we could erase what we don't want, but instead I'm going to go grab the marquee here. And I'm just going to click right up here. You see where my mouse is? I'm going to click and drag. And I'm only going to do halfway to this, the middle of this tile. Right, so you can see where it's at. Line yours up about the same way. You can see on the left-hand side it's about 16 inches. Right there's good. And now we're just going to press the delete key and delete that. Now that's so we don't have to erase as much. Now to deselect, we can do Control D. And now for this part, I want to keep this nice bevel that's right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is get the eraser, E for eraser, and you can right click, and let's do about 200, and we have a hardness slider. So 100% hardness is a hard brush, kind of like this circle here. Whereas if we go down, we have this soft brush here that fades off. That's what we want. Okay, so what we're going to do is click out here, because we could sit here and erase, but what I want you to do is to bring your mouse a little bit above the bevel. You're going to click one time and hold Shift, and then you're going to drag straight across holding Shift. If you mess up, press Control Z. And we get this, that nice bevel still. Now to hide this vent layer, we're just going to click the eyeball icon here to hide that for now. Now I want to scale this down, and so that you can follow along, I'm going to use the rulers here. And if you don't have that, that's Control R. Control R. And then to drag down a guideline, you're going to click on the ruler right where my mouse is and click and drag down. And then we get this line. So what we're going to do is line this up for the approximately 22 mark. It might snap a little bit. That's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then now that we have that there, we can grab our metal roll-up transform control and just scale this down.
Holding Shift.
And what I'm going to do is bring it just to the black area so that this line is right there in the black. Now you can see why I wanted to do a soft edge, because I want to maintain some of that detail there. It looks really, really, really nice. And I'm going to hit enter, and then this guide, you can hover your mouse over it and drag it up to make it disappear. Now for this, the color kind of doesn't match, and that could be okay, but maybe we want to match it a little bit more. We could try maybe multiply, and it really darkens even the area that I don't want dark. So what I can do is I can create an adjustment layer. So we're going to do levels here. Now if we change it currently, it's going to change everything. So the first thing that we want to do is come over here to the layer area and right click, and we're going to do create clipping mask. And this will mean that the levels will only affect the layer below it. So now what we're going to do is, with this icon, the levels icon selected, we're going to come over here, and we can just begin to drag some of these over. I'm going to Control Z. I think I want to move the white over a little bit more. There we go. So just the white one we move over. So this one is still set to 1, and this one's set to 176. So that looks a lot nicer. It's still got some weird coloration to it. So I'm going to select my metal roll-up layer. And now under our adjustment layers, I'm going to do this hue and saturation one. And you notice that it automatically puts it as a clipping mask. And I'm just going to bring the saturation down. So I'm going to desaturate it about halfway. So now it's kind of matching with the grays, but a little bit more scratched up because it's the bottom of this wall, I guess. Awesome. And then for these three, I think for now, let's just go ahead and select these three and group them. So we can do that by pressing Control G, or you can drag them down. You can drag them down to the folder icon. I'm going to call this bottom metal. And this one I'm just going to call my vents. Alright, so I can turn these vents back on. And what I'm going to do here for the vents, let's go ahead and change the shape. So what we're going to do is, instead of like scaling it or anything like that, we're just going to use a shortcut, Control T, to transform. That's also under the edit menu. You have transform right here. Control T, transform. Then we're going to right click. So right click. And we're going to do perspective. And then we're going to grab the corner and pull this in. Just a little bit. I forgot to check the degree mark, but it doesn't really matter, just a little bit in. And then we can hit enter. So now we have this slightly slanted shape here. I think it's kind of cool. We're going to set this layer to multiply as well. So now it's going to be this dark layer. And I'm going to end up duplicating this on each side. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and group it. Control G. Maybe I want to title this all vents. And then for this group, I'm going to create a levels. And you notice it created it in the group. So I'm going to click over here and drag up until I see the line. And I'm going to drag it in between the bottom metal and the all vents group. So now it's here, and I can say levels for vents. And then I'm going to right click and do a clipping mask. So it's going to change only the all vents group. And this one, I'm going to bring my white down. I want it to kind of blend in as much as possible. I think I'm going to try to do the So if we mess this up too much, the cool thing that you can do is come up here and we can just do the default. And then we can come back and slide it again to reset it. And so right now it's not really affecting it the way I want it to, and I'm going to take this the layer itself is set to multiply, but I'm going to take the group, and I'm also going to change that blending mode to multiply as well. Aha! Now we're kind of getting more of what I'm looking for, and apparently this is working out. We'll say 1.15, and we could round this off to 180. That looks good. So now we're going to go back to our vents here. Now I have some minor problems. This just looks kind of tacky. This is a really cruddy looking edge. So to edit this, because it's a smart object, we're going to right click, rasterize layer, again, what do you know? And I'm going to zoom into the hard edge so you can see the hard edge here. Now if we zoom in, oh, by default it must be turned off. There used to be under View, Show, Pixel Grid. I don't know if yours is turned on or not, but if you zoom in and you get this weird thing like that, you want to turn that off. Go up to View, Show, Pixel Grid. There we go. Okay, so now we need to fix this edge up. So we're going to grab the eraser, and that's a little bit too big. I mean, if I fade that, oops, wrong layer. Select our vents layer. I mean, that's just going to look kind of a little tacky too. So what I'm going to do is use my bracket keys and make that a little bit smaller. And I'm just going to kind of fade. Make this look more like it just kind of fades. So right here where there's a really hard edge, I just want to get rid of those hard edges. I do kind of like the lines here, so I might just kind of keep those for the moment. Just kind of fade a little bit so it fades down. I can always fix that later. So same thing for this top area here too. We'll start here. We'll kind of make this brush smaller. I just want to get to that. There we go. Get rid of this hard edge there. Can make this a little bit bigger again to fade these areas. And again, same thing here. We'll kind of yeah, see, that looks much better, well blended in. Alright, so I'm going to bring down a ruler here to the 6-inch mark here. And I'm going to go ahead and stretch this up to the 6-inch mark. And maybe just a tad bit more down. I don't want it touching the edge, but I want it to kind of fade off. That looks pretty nice. Alright, and then to finish this off and duplicate it, what I'm going to do is, you can do this a couple ways. We're going to do this 2 different ways so you can kind of see how it works. The first one is you could use a shortcut, Control J for duplicate. And see, when you duplicate it on top of it, remember it's multiplying. So we can just kind of move this over. And what I do is hold Shift and drag it over. And then I'm going to grab my rotate and hold Shift and rotate it around. And then I'm going to line it up right there. If you need to, you can use your arrow keys. Now the other way, so I'm just going to select this vents layer here. The other way would be to press Alt and you get this icon for duplicate. And then I can Alt drag this out. And then another thing that I can do with this layer is I can do Control T, right click, and I can do rotate 180 degrees. then just bring this one over. And you can see it's a very nice lineup here. There we go. All right. So now that we got that, got a nice feel for it. So that's our vents area. We can minimize the grouping. And the bottom metal, we can minimize that grouping. So here we have our stuff. And now for a little bit with text. So we can grab our text tool, T for text, T. And I'm just going to click, and you can set your color up here on the tool options control panel bar. I'm going to type in Bay, B-A-Y. And I'm going to check the box. That's really small. Instead of changing the font here or anything, I just want to show you a cool shortcut is the arrow keys. Just use the move tool arrows. And I'm going to scale this up. Now it gets kind of wonky, so you want to hold shift so that way it scales perfectly. And then we'll kind of put it right in here. Now for the font, because yours is probably going to be a different font, what we can do here is with the arrow, and it's still selected, the Bay layer, you're just going to go to this character window panel. And if you don't have that, you can just go up here to Window, and then look for Character. They're in order. Character. Voila. And we're going to change this to 445 and hit Enter. And then the font is just going to be Arial. So you'll find Arial and then black. So it's nice and thick. It's like super bold. And then you'll line it up to where it can be center. And then we can minimize this. That's cool. To add some effects to this, what we're going to do is, with Bay right here, we're going to double click over in this blank area of the layer. And this brings up our layer styles. Now, we also have preset styles. So I could click I'd have to click this OK. I can click these ones and you can see I get preset templates, which they're usually not that great presets. I mean, these are pretty terrible. So I'm just not going to use any presets. Okay, what we want to do is double click this. We're going to do a bevel. And our bevel, we want it set to outer bevel. Technique, we're going to do chisel hard. And the depth, you're going to change that to 400. And that's just going to be how thick it is. And then the size, 3. So we could do more, but then it's just going to look kind of tacky. So let's just do 3. We want it to look nice. Nice and crisp. Now, we do have this black lettering, though, which still kind of pops out. So what I'm going to do is we can do this two ways. One is you can come up here to blending options and you'll see a fill here. Or it's also right here. So if I drag this slider all the way to 0, you'll see we get this cool effect with no black letters. But then also over here, the fill, you see it went down to 0. So now to add kind of a nice highlight to the edges of the letters, we could do an inner glow, but that's going to make it really bright and perfect. So what I'm going to do is an inner shadow, and you want to set this, instead of multiply, set it to screen, and change the color here in this box to white, and the opacity, and we can just do the 90-degree angle. That's so light is coming down. And the size, Right? We want to keep that minimally low, so we'll say like 8 sounds like reasonable. And distance is just something we can kind of control for bringing it down. So we're going to leave that at 3, or if yours is not 3, put 3. There you go. So we get a little bit more on the top edges highlights than we do on the sides. So that works nicely. And we're going to go ahead and click OK. And now we've got this kind of sample sci-fi wall with kind of learning a nice little intro to some of the tools inside of Photoshop.